All right, so it is 5:01, and now that we're all at least on screen now, we will call the Round Rock Independent School District Board of Trustees called board meeting for Thursday, May 14th, 2020 to order. We do have a quorum. We will give Jennifer just a minute to put up the flags for us to do the pledge. Maybe. Do we have flags? I guess we could do it without the flags once again, if everyone's comfortable with that, so we don't waste too much time. Everyone, Mason's going to hold up a flag. Thank you, Mason. Okay, so let's go ahead and stand and do the pledge.
You might want to unmute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now we'll do the Texas pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you.
We just make do what we can.
Thank you, Mason. So we did not have anyone sign up for public comments. So we will move to item D1. Dr. Flores.
Unmute. Sorry about that. Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. As we all know, this is an important meeting, and I want to thank each of you for the thoroughness and dedication that's been worked through. This complicated issue has been brought to you. So we know that there's complicated issues when we talk compensation. But of course, under these circumstances, unlike any other we've ever experienced before, it's even more of a difficult task. So I applaud the work of this board. I do hope, though, that tonight we will be able to come to a resolution and provide some certainty for our employees in these uncertain times. As we all know, next week is a very important week in our district as we honor the class of 2020, Monday through Saturday at Kelly Reeves Athletic Complex during our commencement walks. So congratulations to our seniors. Our staff has been working around the clock to make this and our virtual graduation on June 5th possible. And I know our trustees are looking forward to participating as well, especially those that have graduating seniors of their own. Before we hear from Amy Campbell from TASB, I just want to express my sincere gratitude for her hard work and diligence. She took the board's direction from last week and will be presenting you with a scenario that I believe addresses your concerns and helps us make a move to a more competitive and equitable compensation plan. Amy is the Director of HR Services for the Texas Association of School Boards. This year, TASB HR Services is celebrating its 35th year of serving Texas public school districts. In that time, they've completed more than 3,000 compensation projects for nearly 600 different districts across the state. In Round Rock, we've worked with TASB to complete 21 separate consulting engagements dating back to 1983, including engagements in 8 of the past 10 school years, and have found their expertise and guidance to be invaluable. Their methodology for creating market-based pay structures mirrors methodology used in compensation plan development in most industries across the world. And their recommendations, which line up with our budget capacity and priorities, help us achieve our strategic plan goal of identifying, developing, supporting, and retaining a talented team of teachers, administrators, and staff who are equipped to meet the needs of every student. So with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Annette Vieira, our Executive Director of Human Resource Services, who will then turn that over to Ms. Amy from TASB. So thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Dr. Flores. President Ware and trustees, as you know, in our last meeting, we presented 4 compensation options for the board to consider. And the board requested an adjustment in cost model 1. So Amy Campbell is here tonight to share the results of that adjustment, which is now known as cost model 1A. The administration is recommending the compensation plan as reflected in cost model 1A with appendix 1/1A. And now I'm going to turn it over to Amy.
Thanks, everyone. There's not a whole lot new information to give at this point because this cost model looks very, very much like what y'all have already seen from us a couple of times. The adjustments and increases are virtually the same as before, 2% across the board. The primary difference is the limitation of increases to approximately no more than a $7,000 adjustment for staff, and that impacted about 6 individuals. There is one individual who would receive slightly more than that, an additional $331 annually. So again, just for the record, that would be $7,331 increase. So slightly above what we had talked about, but without that $331, that person would not be paid within their pay range. And that entire pay structure would have needed to be rebuilt. So based on our conversations last week, that did not seem to be an insurmountable cost to maintain the integrity of that structure. So Model 1A, it's again called the 2% with cap. It would be 2.1% budget impact for pay increases, 0.6% budget impact for adjustments, and an estimated total increase of 2.7%, which equates to about an $8.6 million budget impact. And that, again, was rolled into Kenneth's budget, Dr. Oddix's budget, when he had shared it previously as well. Happy to answer any questions y'all might have.
Ms. Spessa.
So I know that you shared with board members via a letter how, because when we had met before, we had talked about a $5,000 cap, and then you shared with us prior to this meeting your rationale for why you felt like that cap wasn't workable.
Correct. So you're just asking for additional explanation on the record about that?
Well, yeah, and just because I'm sure that others that watched the previous meeting will be like, wait, I thought...
There's that one. Yeah. So in the letter that I presented to the district, we provided data on the $7,000 limit because, again, it impacted only 6 employees. The reductions to the $7,000 was not so significant as to harm the integrity of the structure. With a $5,000 cap, we felt that it would have essentially damaged the ability of the district to be competitive, both internally and externally, and that would not allow us to fulfill our obligation to the district to provide a market competitive and internally equitable structure. So we opted not to provide that back to the district. One of maybe a data point to cite is a $5,000 adjustment cap for some positions would have been equivalent to only a 2.8% adjustment limit. So on top of the pay increase that they would get, which everyone in the district is allotted, we could only then adjust their salaries by 2.8% beyond that. But if you'll recall back to our prior meeting, some of these positions were 20 to 30% below market, and we felt like that would not adequately address those market differentials in the way we were tasked with doing. The district is certainly able to adopt whatever the board and the administration sees fit. We just didn't feel like it would be doing our due diligence to bring that forward as a formal TASB recommendation. We could not stand behind that.
So given, like, just as a point of clarity, when we say that there's a cap of $7,000, does that mean no one in the district is receiving more than a $7,000 raise?
No one in the district would receive more than a $7,000 adjustment in addition to the pay raise, with that individual exception of the person who would get $7,331.
So can you give a sense to people, like, the range then? So, you know, you have I kind of asked this question before, but so like obviously the top end of the range would be the 7,300 plus the 2% of their salary, which I think we discussed before was somewhere between $10,000 and $11,000.
So for the employees getting the highest level of adjustments, which caps out at that 7,331, the total increase for them, which would be the 2% plus the adjustment, the maximum amount the district would grant is $10,538. For those other, but as a percent of salary, that is not a very high percentage. It'd be about 7.5%, which is equivalent to what you gave your teachers last year. It just sounds like a higher dollar amount because it's a person whose salary baseline is higher. It's a year-round administrator, not a teacher.
I know I had one question that actually was brand new because I had just looked at the TEA, and I know I sent this at 2:00, so it may not, we may not have an answer right now. But one of the things the TEA had put out, sort of the new calendar for next year, recommendations, and it looked like there were possibly more days in that calendar than 187. So just sort of looking at the contracts, and I know most of the teachers have already signed their contracts, or all of the teachers except for new teachers have signed their contracts. What does, I mean, I guess I'm curious how that impacts. If we think we may be going over 187, are we going to add duty days? Is that even possible to add duty days to the calendar, to their contracts now that they've already been signed? And if we go that route, how much is that going to cost per day?
So you're exactly right. Because contracts have been signed and because the instructional calendar for the next school year was already adopted prior to those contracts being signed, it certainly would be risky to try to extend the contract. The commissioner today on his call did speak to that briefly. There have been some commissioners' decisions, very contentious ones that lasted for years and years in the system, about requiring teachers to work beyond the agreed upon calendar when they sign their contract. And those commissioners' decisions have not yet been overturned. So until that happens, or until the commissioner clarifies that, I would say it's certainly risky to try to extend a work schedule on a contract that has already been signed. But I'll defer to the district on what their plans are.
Anyone?
Yeah, Dr. Flores or...
Yeah, no. I was trying to get to my mute button. I'm still trying to get to, it's the new feature. I guess it's an upgrade. But you did send that question at 2:00. Staff's looked at it right now. We're not talking about an extension of a calendar. We're not adjusting anything of that matter. We would have extensive discussions that would have to occur. So right now, that's not something that we're looking at. Eventually, I think that flexibility in our guiding principles is our guiding principle number 2, and we will be as flexible as possible. But I know that in the discussions, I wasn't on the TEA call today getting ready for this meeting, but I can tell you that when this commissioner and other districts are talking about intersessional, it sounds good in theory, and it sounds great to some districts, and it works well for those districts that have been doing that. So those districts that have been doing that, they're to be commended. But at this point, that's not something that we're looking at. As a matter of fact, there's been some discussion of, maybe the school year needs to begin earlier than our August 20th date. And it's ironic that our calendar ends this Thursday. Believe it or not, our last bell in our schools would be ringing this coming Thursday. That's where we are in this year. But we're not seeing next year to be any August the 20th. We don't even, looking at this and talking to our staff on a daily basis, if we say, well, let's be proactive and let's look at 2 weeks before, I can tell you with what's going on nationally and day by day, how we're getting, more information on this COVID-19. I think our August 20th is our steadfast date. For us to try to start any earlier would be, for us, very problematic until there's more certainty, if there's such a thing. So with that, I hope that answers your question. It would not impact us for this coming year.
Okay. Yeah, it was a contract question. So, Mr. Moses.
Thank you, Madam President. And Amy, I just want to really thank you for your work and putting this all together and helping us through this, and just just know how much we appreciate your efforts and everything you've done to try and help educate us and make sure we can make a great decision for our staff.
Thank you.
I think for those of us who maybe, I think this is a good middle ground. I think there are some of us who maybe probably would like to see some other things one way or another, but I think this is a good place where we can move forward and feel confident we're taking care of our staff and staying competitive with our teachers and our main office of personnel, our librarians, counselors, principals, etc. So, Madam President, see any other hands pop up. So if not, then I'll make a. Oh, sorry, I didn't see Ms. Stellar. Then I'll wait.
Are you calling on me, Madam President? Okay, you're on.
She is.
I just
on mute.
Couple of things that I've been looking at, and this isn't for Amy Campbell, for the rest of the board if we're moving into that discussion. I went back and reviewed DEA local, and our board policy specifically says the superintendent may recommend to the board an amount for employee pay increases, but the superintendent may determine pay adjustments for individual employees within the approved budget. Having that in our policy, along with the fact that we are really targeting 6 individuals on the board by making this recommendation for 1A, I have a real problem with us making a recommendation that is aimed at six individuals out of 8,000. Especially it violates our policies where we are supposed to be just approving an amount, and the superintendent is supposed to be determining how that money is spent. So having said that, I would move to approve. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the composition plan 1, not 1A, as presented last week.
Good. Amy,
Yeah.
where? Can I step in? So again, would you explain, Amy Campbell, real quick, what the difference between 1 and 1A is? Because I just got this, I think, yesterday, then it got updated, I guess, today, if I read that right.
So the primary difference would be 1A reduces the recommended increases to limit the adjustments to $7,000, with that one exception that's $331 above that. So for 6 individuals, it cuts their increases below what we originally recommended. Option 1 includes the full recommended amount.
So we do have a motion on the table for option 1.
Okay.
No second.
And there's no second, so that motion has died for lack of a second. Mr. Moses?
Thank you, Madam President. Then I move that the Board of Trustees approve the adoption of the 2020-21 compensation plan as reflected in Model 1 in Appendix 1A.
Okay, so now we have a motion on the table for Model 1A.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for Model 1A. I'm going to maybe give everybody one chance to say something before we call the vote, if that's okay. We'll just go alphabetically because that's my first list. So, Mr. Chadwell, did you have anything to say?
Sure. I'll make a couple statements here. One is this of course is another difficult decision that we have to make, and either one is difficult. Either one we're going to have a lot of supporters and a lot of detractors. But one of the things that I look at is the environment that we're in right now is certainly cost cutting and budget, just focus on our budget going forward. One of the things that came up from the 2011 session was that there was a 15% cut to Round Rock ISD, and there were a lot of positions that were not given a contract, and then a lot of the money came back. So trying to compare that is a little bit different. There are some similarities, but there's a lot of differences between what was going on then and what's going on now. The other thing is last year, as Amy Campbell just said, the average teacher got a 7.5% pay raise last year, which was very generous. And of course, a lot of that had to do with House Bill 3. We're grateful for that, and we passed that along. And then I'd say the final thing is a lot of these positions, certainly the area superintendent's positions, were created after about this time in the summer of 2017. And that money just came from I sent an email to Dr. Flores. I was looking for that today. When I sent that out, we got an email, I think it was June or July of 2017, that said, welcome the new area superintendents, and they're fine people, but the way those positions were created and that money was found, I still didn't understand it even after I got an email. So eventually I'd like to find that and have us look at it. So back to what you were saying, Amber, was we do give the superintendent authority, but one of the things, expectations, is that we get a clarification on how that is, these positions are created and where it comes from. We did give the superintendent authority to hire principals without board approval. I think it's one of the things that we do have as an authority as a board, is to approve positions, and we may want to look at that going forward. So as much as I would like to say what's going on right now, I don't think there's going to be an August 24th start date, at least not in the standard sense. I think there's going to be a lot of modifications, continued modifications, based on what I'm reading in the news and hearing from all over. I just think it's going to be an unusual start time. It may pick up in October, September, late September, October, but since we don't know what's going on, there's still too many variables. I'm not opposed to giving teachers a raise. I'm not opposed to giving staffers a raise, but right now, considering what we've gone through and all of the ambiguity out there, I'm just having a hard time supporting what I've been seeing in all of the information that we got just in the last 24 hours. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Feller, did you have any more comments?
I have supported a pay raise since the beginning. And again, we don't know what the future holds, but given where we are right now and what we know at this moment, I continue to support this. I do have a bit of a problem, as voiced in my earlier statement, that we are violating our own board policy by having TASB go back and make an adjustment that specifically targets just a few individuals. So I do have a problem with that, but I will vote for this in order to give everybody in our district a raise.
Ms. Gonzalez?
I still hold the same views that we need to allow for this raise. And I believe that this has been belabored long enough, and let's vote.
Mr. Math, do you have any final comments before we vote?
So, I have been asking for some kind of a compromise all along. And I was hoping that we'd have more than a $70,000 movement on an $8.7 million amount. But the fact is, we are where we are, and we're in a binary situation, and we either need to vote to support our teachers with the adjustments, or we just don't support our teachers. And I'm not in a position where I could punish our teachers. So that's all I've got to say.
Mr. Moses, did you have any final
Yeah,
comments?
and I'll be fairly brief, and I thank everybody for, I think, working together the best we can on this, as this is a challenging times, and whenever staffing makes up 85, 88% of your budget, it's going to be a significant dollar figure, whether you raise it or not, or the impact. So I do appreciate everyone trying to work together, trying to come to find some middle ground. I do agree with Ms. Feller that while this was her sentiment, that, I mean, this is not everything I wish we could do for our staff. Obviously, I think we all wish we could do more raises for our teachers. I wish we could compensate our administrative staff and our librarians and counselors, principals, to that of their peers across the area and the state, because I think we have better than other districts have. They deserve better. But I understand we got to make some tough decisions that we may not be 100% happy with. But I do want to clarify a couple things that were said earlier. I want to make sure on the record. We have and did receive multiple communications about how the area superintendent positions were found and were funded. We received at least, I want to say, I don't know how many exact emails. So I know there are multiple emails. We talked about multiple times as a board in closed session or in personnel. We knew it was talked about, it was discussed. I understand that some may not fully understand that, and that's fine. But to say it wasn't shared, that's not accurate at all. And I think also I want to make sure, just again, I understand we got some information recently, but whenever we kind of get making changes, that's sometimes what happens. So again, I want to thank the board for working together on this. I look forward to hopefully giving our teachers this increase that they deserve. Wish it was more. And I hope that they are also very wise over the next few years with what's going on with our society. So thank you all very much.
Ms. Vessa.
So, as you can imagine, this vote is really hard for me, and I have really agonized over what's the right thing to do. And what I basically come to the point is that a yes vote and a no vote are both the right thing to do. And a yes vote is the right thing to do because many of our positions are underpaid in relation to other districts. And last year was a historic year in terms of school. It makes sense that this year, many other districts across the state, we're trying to use those additional dollars to bring their non-teaching staff up to market wages. A yes vote acknowledges the important role all our staff play in Round Rock ISD in delivering a quality education. And we can't afford it this year. There's a strong possibility this will be the last raise we see for several years as budget cuts from the economic fallout of the pandemic come to fruition. Other industries will recover and begin to give raises again, but we won't be able to immediately because we have a delayed funding cycle. A yes vote now fixes pay disparities that have existed for many years and would just continue for several more if we don't take action now. But a no vote is also right because conserving money today means avoiding layoffs and other cuts in the future. We do have a strong fund balance, but even if we see cuts of 5%, we are facing a deficit of about $27 million in 2021-22. If cuts are more in line with 2011, it could be 3 times worse. Furthermore, a no vote is right because it sends a message to taxpayers and legislatures that we are being financially prudent, knowing what is coming. I personally can't see myself lobbying at the state or federal level after we have passed this compensation package. Nor can I see myself asking the citizenry for a tax increase. I would feel very disingenuous asking the legislature or taxpayers to prioritize the school district over cities and counties when they didn't even consider raises in this time. Moreover, many had to furlough employees. And both of us provide vital services. Both votes are right and both votes are wrong. I thought if we could just limit raises, that would be a middle ground, but that doesn't appear to be possible. It seems like it's pretty much the full package or nothing at all. So I'm very frustrated. We don't have peace with either vote. But I think whatever we do, shift focus back to students. How we are going to meet their growing needs and how we are going to prepare for a year that will look unlike anything we've ever seen before has to be the priority. How can we learn from the experiences of this spring to improve next school year? How can we engage students, parents, and teachers to gain lessons learned and involve them in the process of planning for an uncertain tomorrow? So that's pretty much where I'm at. I'm just really torn. And, you know, I don't know what the right decision is.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say, I am still very torn. I actually agree with a lot that's been said. I wish that we could do more for teachers and staff, but unfortunately it's not a normal year. It's not normal circumstances. And, you know, I do see that the writing is on the wall. I feel a little bit backed into a corner for this decision that we're making today. I feel like we're the kid jumping off a cliff because everybody else is, and we're using this, that we've got to stay competitive as our reason to jump off this cliff. You know, I want to be clear that I'm going to vote. I want to vote to support teachers and staff. But I feel in my heart that voting this way is going to commit our fund balance for the next few years. You know, because I, for one, am not going to be willing to vote for an extra penny and raise taxes in this environment. And I'm not going to be able to support a budget that cuts student programs and teachers as we go into the future. You know, I just want us to be really clear, and I don't want in a year to be acting like we didn't see this coming. when we've got a new school and a new pool and we've added all this money on there, that we, to sort of echo what a couple of other people said, we have to protect our teachers and our students, and we just as a community and a board and a staff need to be aware that we do have a good fund balance, and we're going to start using it, because I think there's a lot that's going to happen in the next few months that unfortunately is really going to impact us. But I also agree with Ms. Gonzalez, and we've probably hashed this out way too much. So we do have a motion and a second on the table for Model 1A. We'll just raise hands, and if we can all see it, then we'll do it that way. If not, then we can go back and call it. But all those in favor of Model 1A as presented, raise your hand. Okay, can't really. So I see, okay, now I see 6 yeses. All those against? Mr. Chawa. So I saw 6-1. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
That's what
All right. So compensation plan 1A passes 6-0.
6-1.
And
6-1.
Oh, 6-1. Sorry. Thank you. 6-1. We will now move to action items D2.
Madam President, before we go to see the next item, I do want to say thank you to this board. I know this was a tough decision. I think Ms. Vesta encapsulated it perfectly, the confliction between yes, going this route or no. So thank you. I think that was spot on. But I do think also the challenge and the charge is definite. The challenges are already here, and those are already being confronted in a way that I'm so proud of our staff, from our payroll, who hasn't missed, and our business officers who have not missed a paycheck, who haven't done, they have done remarkable work to all of our divisions. And so again, thank you. And I think that for our staff, I think it's the best in the nation in public education. I'm talking staff, teachers, custodians, you name it, bus drivers, everybody commends you. And I wish, like I've said from the get-go, that it would have been more. You said it as well, President, that we wish. But I think that if it had been more, then we really are during uncertain times, possibly not being very proactive for the future. The last thing I'll say is that just to be a point of clarity, because if I need to be clear next time with the area superintendents, they are doing yeoman's work. They are doing yeoman's work, and that was actually a reorganization of 2 years ago, which was, I thought, well communicated to the board. Obviously, it wasn't. It was right after the failed bond of 2017, where we said we're going to have to be more and more with the community. So let me be clear: 5 area superintendents, each representing the comprehensive high schools. And each of them were a position that was either an assistant superintendent or some other secondary or elementary. So I just want to be clear, because I don't want that misinformation out there. And if I need to be more clear, Ms. Chadwell, you and I can talk offline. Thank you.
All right. So are we ready for D2?
Yes, we are. So with that, we have Dr. Kathy Malerba, who is, and this is the work. And let me preface and say that there are policies and some other things that we all need, and we've had the help of Lone Star governance coach. Obviously, Dr. Drew Howard, we commend him. He became the superintendent in Nolan County and Sweetwater ISD. What that means is that right now we don't have a coach, and right now it's obvious that we are in need of assistance with our governance team, and I stand to make sure that happens as well. I hope this team of 8 does as well. And in the interim, during this crisis, we have, I think, what has been started in discussion by the board with Dr. Malerba's assistance, some really good points of how we can move forward in the most proactive way. So without further ado, Dr. Kathy Malerba.
Thank you, Dr. Flores. Good evening, President Weir and trustees. I have two action items to tee up here. Basically, both have the same context and background. So if you'll remember back on April 30th, at the end of the instructional continuity update, I had a few minutes just to advise the board that our planned student outcome goals that we would have reported on from May through August, that would have included some accountability outcomes too, would be unavailable because of the suspension of STAR testing and the suspension of accountability reporting for the 2020 school year. So at that time, I asked the board to have a discussion about possible replacements, possibly monitoring system outputs in as a replacement. And you all had about a 30-minute discussion and took notes. It was extremely helpful. It gave me a lot of to work with. Some of the themes that I heard that evening were your interest in monitoring student engagement with distance learning, both in this past spring and this summer that's coming up. Checking in with parents and students, getting their feedback about those experiences, interest in learning more about student well-being and staff well-being and staff's experience with distance learning. And I'd say the last theme was really to closely monitor enrollment and any emerging barriers to enrollment this coming fall. So we used all of those themes to develop a crisis monitoring plan, which was attached to the evening's agenda. And this evening, barring any other questions you have, the board can decide to suspend the current board monitoring calendar for a few months because those metrics are not available, and to adopt the crisis monitoring priorities. So with that, President Weir, I'll see if there are any questions.
Well, I actually had a quick question, and then I see you, Corey. I noted CCMR is still, is that one still available? And TEA is still expecting us to give that data, right?
Yes, ma'am. We will have both the CCMR results for the class of 2019 that would have comprised the part of accountability this year, and then we will be reporting to the state all of this year's current class of 2020 CCMR data as well. So that won't be lost to us, but it won't, it wouldn't be available as the accountability reports that we're used to seeing.
I guess, how did we have CCMR? Because that is one of our goals in there. I'm
sorry.
No, I was trying to pull up the calendar real quick on my iPad over here to see it, but you may just know off the top of your head. That would have been in the fall, right? We would have had that report on 2019. This is the one that always confuses me because it's always a year behind.
Because it's a lagging indicator. We'll still be able to report to you and in fact, I think the reason that it's not a problem is because those things would have been reported again, starting again in September. That's when we would have picked up with the reporting of certifications earned. This past spring, we talked about college readiness assessment performance, and let me see. I don't have the regular monitoring calendar in front of me, but then there's one other, and then the accountability summary. We will still be able to report that to you.
Okay, and that's in the fall, so it's not really affected on this calendar that we have right now, and the new calendar only goes through August, so we would still.
That's correct. We can still continue to monitor those things in 2021. Yes.
Okay, and then I saw Corey, and then Mason. Did you have your hand up after Corey, or none? No. Okay, so Corey.
So, has the commissioner talked at all about what he foresees being possible in terms of returning to that calendar next year? Or is it just really too early to tell?
If you'll remember back to that report that I provided for you a few weeks ago, I made my best guesses about which components of the accountability system would be available in 2021. So, for example, we wouldn't have access to growth on TELPAS because TELPAS ended up being optional for completion this year. So those kinds of nuances. But in terms of any final decision making, the commissioner has not previewed anything for 2021 at this point. it's an emerging circumstance.
Mr. Moses?
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Kathy, for putting this together, and I really do want to. I think this is wise for us to amend this calendar, this monitoring calendar. We are entering in uncertain times, and I think anybody who sits your day and tells you what they think TEA is going to do regarding assessments next year is, they might be right, they might be wrong, but nobody knows. And so I think having this to at least monitor some of the work that's going to be going on as we come back to the school is important. Now, what it means is to be determined. I think this is at least a good start for us to make sure we're performing our role of monitoring student outcomes and getting at least a new baseline. Because I think we all got to be honest and say there's going to be a new baseline. We don't know what it is yet, but this will help us figure out what that is. So thank you for putting this together.
I don't actually see any hands, but so I had one other question.
I have one more question.
Okay. Well, I was just going to ask, TEA had put out that free tool for parents to diagnose how much their students learned this year and help educators plan for the COVID slide. And I know it was optional for parents. There were some things the school system had to do in order to set that up. Is that something that we are looking at to try to get some type of measurements, even if it is voluntary and not all of our kids?
Well, we discussed that as a leadership team a few weeks ago when the opportunity first was made known to us. And at that time, the consensus was not to offer it on a district-wide basis. It's still completely available to any family who would like to register on their own. And if the student will get immediate results, and it will give parents a sense of how their students are doing compared to the statewide curriculum for their grade level. But as a system, we didn't want to pursue it because the testing conditions are so very different. Taking an assessment at home versus, the kind of quiet and focused setting of school. And also just didn't want to suggest to families at all that they would be required to do this. It is absolutely totally optional, and we didn't want to add to anyone's stress level or burden. But I do think it's great that TEA made that available even to families directly if they would like to try that out. But it is a full-length STAR test, so students might be sitting there for a couple of hours working on it.
Will the district, if somebody does it optionally, will the district have that data, or it would only go to the parents at this point?
We would have had to have registered the whole district to get those results. So only the parent will receive the results if the student tests from home.
And it's just purely optional for the parents and the students.
Yes.
Doesn't affect there's not EOC of any kind. It's not their just practice.
Essentially, yes, just a little temperature check, have some confidence about student learning this year.
Okay. Can I go?
Yes, I'm sorry, Ms. Bessa.
So as we talk about our crisis monitoring plan, how does some of those things that we're measuring, like assignments completed and things like that, is there a way for us to compare, maybe to see how our strategies worked compared to other districts who might have used different strategies, so that we can say, okay, actually we had a higher participation rate, or we had a lower participation rate than other districts who used other strategies, so that we can gain some understanding in terms of what was and wasn't, effective in terms of engaging students and getting them to complete work. Is that, as you look at other districts and what they're tracking, could we make those types of comparisons using these criteria?
That's a very good question, and I think I've been speaking to my colleagues across the state, but I know, for example, I think the clearest recollection I have is with the one I had with a colleague in Arlington, and they're measuring they're measuring participation in a slightly different way. So I think I'd really have to put some thought to that. And those may end up being questions that are better answered by TEA or in some kind of regional analysis. But I will kind of put some thought to that and see if there are any colleagues that would want to collaborate on something. But I think we probably all did things just slightly differently, that those comparisons might be difficult, but happy to think about it.
But you think TEA might put together something that they may collect data that would have some type of regional evaluation?
Well, I guess what's in the back of my mind right now is that they are monitoring. They've asked us to report students that are not engaged at all. So TEA themselves will be able to monitor outcomes for students who are not engaged in learning at a district.
But are we reporting things like to them, like assignments completed or number of kids passing, for the semester or whatever? Okay, no. All right.
Yeah, no, we're not.
Okay.
And I guess I just want to make sure that everybody had a chance to look over this, because I know, I had a discussion with Dr. Malerba, and I know Amber did. Maybe it would be good to take just a few minutes to go over it a little bit, what they are. Ms. Feller?
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just was when you're finished talking.
Oh, yeah. Well, I didn't want her to go through them if you had a question real quick. But I mean, I think it might be a good idea for everybody, even people at home that maybe aren't seeing this, to just kind of go through what we're talking about real quick so it's clear. But yes, Ms. Feller.
So my question is actually an intro into this. I was wondering, Dr. Malerba, if you could kind of tell us some of the process behind how these crisis priority measures were created. Did you talk to any other districts that are also implementing Lone Star governance? That kind of background of how you've done your side of the job to develop all of this as well. So if you could kind of maybe give us a little bit of background on, especially other districts that are on, they're using LSG and possibly on the leaderboards, because that's where we want to be.
Sure, I will. I will say that largely almost exclusively this was driven by trustees' requests from their discussion the evening of the 30th. I did also call a couple of, the two leaders on the leaderboard from LSG. I spoke to both of those board presidents, and then I called colleagues in Austin and Arlington ISDs just to see what other folks were measuring. And for the most part, they were reporting to their boards more of those output kinds of things that I originally had in mind, and that you have had presentations on. So the outcomes around meals served, devices distributed, that sort of thing. So not surprising. So some similar things that you've heard. I would say there were a couple of the conversations brought to my attention that other districts are monitoring maybe a broader range of metrics, even LSG districts across their strategic plan. And I found that sort of intriguing, and we might want to circle back to that at the end of the summer. Yes, ma'am.
Prior to COVID, or now that COVID has happened?
Prior to COVID.
Oh, okay.
So
they had a broader range of metrics.
Yes, they were not exclusively focused on student outcomes the way that we've been talking about them. They were obviously a top priority, but they didn't limit themselves to that. So I thought that was an interesting perspective. But I will say that with the exception of Houston, which was sort of the inspiration for where we were headed, none of the four that I spoke to had sort of redone a set of metrics to monitor during the crisis period at that point. They were thinking, Maura, thank you for calling. We really need to have this conversation. So we're a little bit on the leading edge by doing this, but with the limited time we had, I'm kind of glad that we got some ideas down on paper, because now my team's work will be very focused this summer. So that's roughly where we are compared to our colleagues.
Okay, can you just sort of walk us through real quick before, I don't know if you can share your screen or if Jennifer has them.
I was advised that I would need to share my screen. Oh, it says host disabled participant screen sharing. So Jennifer, is there any chance you're able to share, or perhaps Jenny? My items
we have the presentation. Is that the one that we have?
I'm just looking at board docs and the two attachments to D.
Yes.
Yes, D3. Yes. Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, so I guess I'll just do sort of the high-level overview here. So we did identify or recommend crisis monitoring priority number 1 would be to monitor student engagement this spring, and to use what we learned to develop response plans for the fall. So CPM 1.1 is to look at this number of students who complete their semester courses and to report those. So that's work we'll do after school ends, of course. We will also, and this will be coming to you tomorrow, Dr. Presley sent you a preview of this information, but we added some student group information about the number of students who are unaccounted for in each campus and learning community. So that you'll get another piece of information about that tomorrow. And then later this summer, there'll be an opportunity to report on instructional plans for the fall. I won't own that, obviously. That'll be more Dr. Presley and Ms. Estes. But, looking across over what we learned from the feedback we're getting from students, parents, and staff, and thinking about how to adjust for those learning needs next fall. And so crisis monitoring priority 2 would be to monitor student engagement with summer learning this summer. And at the end of this month, Ms. Estes and Dr. Presley will tell you about the summer learning plan in detail. We'll have counts of students who are registered and engaged in the Tier 1 and Tier 2 support. And for Tier 2 students, we should be able to provide some information about the level of engagement with that work. I haven't got the final details on that, but I do have a rough sense of when I'll be able to report on it. So we can look at the next page, Jennifer. Yeah. The third priority is really coming from the trustees' interest in just getting stakeholder feedback, in particular from parents and students. And so we've already reached out to all of our stakeholder groups with a thought exchange. Somehow I must have breezed by that. Oh, maybe perhaps it's at the end. We're going to launch all of our planned surveys tomorrow, and we'll be asking about instructional experiences, social and emotional well-being, those types of things. And we've kind of got a placeholder here as things emerge, as next year becomes clearer. We're sort of penciling in an opportunity to check in with our stakeholders again in July for sort of a last infusion of feedback from the community about how things are shaping up for fall. Crisis monitoring priority 4 is very similar, but it'll be staff focused. So that staff survey will be going out either tomorrow or Monday. And again, we'll have another check-in with them later in the summer. And the last page. Oh, There it is. There it is. So the other thing one of the bigger trends that came out of your conversation on the 30th was just concerns about student enrollment. So we found a couple of ways to monitor pre-registration enrollment patterns this past spring, and we'll keep an eye on registration again when after the New Year rollover in July, and then monitor enrollment early into the school year as well. And as many of you know, we already launched our thought exchange to start getting a sense of what folks are thinking about, what concerns they have about returning to school in the fall. A lot of those, as you might imagine, are health related. We'll have an update for you on that on the 22nd in the board update. And those are our top priorities. Are there any specific questions about these matters?
Well, I can see Mr. Chadwell has a question.
Yes.
So on 5.1, your enrollment trends, you said in May 8th and then June 5th, you're going to get an idea on the enrollment. Is that what?
Yeah, I was a little sloppy on the using the term enrollment. It's more appropriately pre-registration is what we'll have here at the end of this school year. And that'll be the case. It's really registration until the first day of school, and then we'll be able to pick back with enrollment monitoring.
Okay. So I know I've asked about it before and about validating residency, and that could be put into this as well. I think I sent you an email and you were on that as well. So thank you.
Oh, okay. I'll have to make a note of that. Thank you.
Mr. Math, and then Corey, you'll be after Steve.
So I've done the thought exchange, and it appears to be anonymous, which I think is probably good. Is the staff feedback also anonymous?
Yes. I believe we just opened it wide open. All you had to do was say, whether you were student, staff, or parent to participate.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Ms. Vessa?
Well, first I want to say that, I appreciated the fact that I know I had a lot of feedback last time as to things that I wanted that I felt would be important to monitor, and I felt that they all got included. So I'm really appreciative of that. I had reached out, I know that we're starting the survey tomorrow, right? The survey that is not the thought exchange, but the more concrete survey. The only thing that would have been helpful there was just to see it beforehand. None of us have seen it. We don't really even know what's in the survey. And so that would be helpful in the future to just be able to at least prior to rollout, just look at it. I understand that the time frame on this was really quick, and I appreciate that we're trying to capture the feedback in a timely fashion, but it would be helpful because ultimately I asked for the survey to garner certain information from the survey, and if we're not asking the questions that garnered that information, then the point of my asking for it is kind of moot.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
I had a question.
Ms. Gonzalez?
So when are we going to get a new LSG coach? Do we have any idea? So we're just not out here kind of doing, not that you didn't do a great job. I just want to make sure we're on the right path and we're in line with LSG and TEA.
And I will tell you, and Amber asked that exact question earlier this week. I reached out, and I think it was last Friday, to TEA because Dr. Howard had said he would work to get us a replacement. But I know his contract has started in Sweetwater, so he's completely probably overwhelmed with that. I was hoping to hear back this week from them about a replacement coach, and I will follow up with them again tomorrow. I will also say, though, David Kompel from TASB has offered if we decide he lives in Round Rock. And I know I told Dr. Flores, and maybe Dr. Malerba, but he's offered his services to us if we don't get a coach, if we would like to have someone come in and facilitate for us. And Mason, does that answer your question?
What do you mean by not? Well, yeah, it did, but also not get a coach, like at all?
No, we should get it. Hopefully TEA will assign us a coach.
Okay.
That's what he said he would get back to me this week. TEA, I would have to look up his name, but whoever their LSG kind of point person is, and hopefully we would get
sure.
him
I'm sure they're busy restructuring and trying to figure out what to do.
Right. And so I had talked to David Kompel from TASB on another thing, and he just offered, he said, he could come do a couple sessions with us if we wanted someone to help facilitate while we're waiting. Does that answer your question? I can't tell. Yes. So Mr. Moses.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think I'm glad to know we have David in our back pocket because we may need that. Because I know I saw an email today. I think we all got it from TEA, and Jeff Cottrell is going to be kind of interim over that department. And it looked like they canceled obviously their trainings and all of that. So I suspect that they'll be they have other things to do than assign coaches. So. Yeah, I think it's definitely worth the call to Jeff, but I'm glad to know we have David. I think that's a good option in case TEA can't assign anybody. Thank you.
Right, and he did say, he could do like 2, maybe 1 hour sessions with us if that would be helpful, maybe even more. But he would actually do it for free, so it's a great price. If we would like, if we would like to take him up on that. So that's just something to think about if as we go through this into the summer and bringing him on as a help. He would love to help. He would love to volunteer for us.
Yeah, free, quality, and going to have it right now. You get 2 of the 3.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yep. Actually, we could probably even get it right now. So, because he's been asking how he could help us out. So, are there any more questions? Because I think what we need to do is go back. These were action items. And are we suspending the board, Dr. Flores and Dr. Malerba, just through August, the calendar through August, and then we'll work on this new calendar through August, and then we're thinking in August we'll come back and kind of reevaluate what the fall goals are going to look like do it in kind of 2 steps? Okay. All right. So then, Mr. Moses.
Madam President, I move that due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the board suspend the monitoring of student outcome goals and superintendent constraints from May through August 2020.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to suspend our board goals and superintendent constraints from May through August 2020. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. All right, I see. So 7-0.
I'm happy to make the next motion.
Okay.
I move that the board adopt the crisis monitoring priorities as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt the crisis monitoring plan priorities as presented. Is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, raise your hand. All right, I see 7-0. All right, thank you. And I think we're good then, Dr. Malerba. I know Ms. Vessa maybe had a few things, but and Lynn, let us know or let David know if we want to maybe try to bring him on to help facilitate some of this as we go through the summer.
Great. Thank you.
All right, that moves us to item E1, our COVID-19 pandemic update. Dr. Flores.
Yes, thank you, Madam President, members of the board. We do have this item on the agenda, and we did have a comprehensive review of this 2 weeks ago, but I do think and I agree that this is probably something until it becomes more clear or uncertainty is still out there, the more we can talk about this, at least give an overview and provide an overview. It probably needs to be standard on every board agenda. So I think Trustee Vessa had brought that up last week, and I said, you bet. And the only thing, it took us a while. So you did just get this, I think, yesterday or even today, because staff was still working on that. But it's kind of an update. It's a refresher, and I'm proud to say that we have an update for you tonight. And with that, Dr. Presley will lead the first part of that, and then it'll be done by Ms. Mandy Estes, our Chief of Teaching and Learning. So without further ado, Dr. Presley.
Thank you, Dr. Flores. President Weir, trustees, Dr. Flores, thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. This is the COVID update. Jennifer, if you can bring up the slide presentation. And just start with that. We'll go through that pretty quickly. I know we gave you an extensive update a couple of weeks ago, a few hours worth, it seems like. And so this is a higher level, but just kind of the things that we're looking at and working on every day. So you're in tune with what our happenings are in the district. You can go to the next slide, Jennifer. So the community health update, Elaine Duville, our director of health services, along with others in the district, are continually watching the dashboards in Williamson County and Travis County. So these numbers are not unlike what you see on the news, but we are monitoring this. A couple things to point out that we're watching real close are the younger victims of the COVID virus. 15 cases in the 0 to 17 age group in Williamson County, and 110 cases. I guess Travis County measures it a bit differently through age 19, but 110 cases in Travis County, which obviously is a much bigger county population-wise. But we're watching not only the impact of the virus as a whole on the community, but also for its youngest victims, the youngest people that are getting sick. We think that's important to really keep an eye on. So the rest of this is just things you've seen in the presentation and things you've heard on the news about the number of deaths and the number of reported cases. And we will continue to see an increase. It's expected as we have more testing. And they're daily getting more testing in both counties and all Central Texas. And so we think we'll see those numbers continue to grow. Jennifer? So points to consider, and these are things we talk about on a daily basis. As I said, Elaine Duville updates me every day. We have leadership team meetings every day or every other day with everybody involved to look at these things. But we're talking about how to plan and prepare. If we do come back in August, and we also are working scenarios with committees on preparing different ways we could come back to school in August. And what will we do if a case appears on a campus? So we're getting that detailed of how we would respond to that. How would we implement social distancing in our classroom with our populated campuses, and how would that look as far as scheduling kids to come in and out of the building? If a student is ill on campus, how do we isolate them in a clinic? Because as you know, all of our campuses have one health clinic where the school nurses work, and how would that look differently maybe? Monitoring and planning for increased absenteeism. Would we require everybody to wear face covering or not? And that's kind of, changing all the time, and some political conflict on what's proper and what's not. So we're watching all that and what the landscape tells us, what will be required or not required. And then cleaning and disinfecting campuses will obviously be a big deal. Our operations department does an amazing job on our campuses. And of course, they've all been pretty empty since spring break. So they're all really clean right now. But when we start bringing folks back in, what does that look like on a daily basis, and how do we need to adjust how we clean? And then also consideration of meeting the needs of our higher risk staff and students that have underlying health issues or other reasons that they may be more not immune to getting the COVID virus. Jennifer, you can go to the next one. So in technology, this is an update, and we've been giving you updates on these. I know there was some information sent out in last Friday's update a week ago. So in all, we've given, if you consider the students who have one-to-one on their campuses like Round Rock High School and Early College, and then the Chromebook distribution that we did, that many of you helped with. Thanks for coming out and sweating and passing those out, trustees. So we have about 12,000 of our devices in homes right now that students are using. And the snapshots that Mr. Gabehart's department does in MIS at any one time when they check, on average, there are about 11,000 of those turned on. That's a really good thing. I think that's a pretty high percentage considering there are 12,000 issued. And at any one time when they check, I don't know the frequency of the checks. I could get that for you. But when they have checked, there's been on average about 11,000 that are being turned on and being used. Hotspots, we've got our first round of 500 delivered, and we've distributed 460 of those. And then the second round we have available next week, and we put that on hold because we still have 40 to hand out for people who need them, and we're still looking for those kids who need them. And some of that may change with summer learning because somebody may be staying somewhere else in the summer than they are now. So we're going to be real flexible with that. But we haven't distributed the second 500 yet because we still have 40. And once you issue them, then we start getting billed for those. And so those are $20 a month with unlimited data. So we're trying to be also mindful and frugal in this environment, give everybody what they need, but don't just start passing them out, if they're not needed yet. And so they will not start billing for those hotspots until they've been issued and turned on. And that's why we're kind of in a holding pattern right now, but we have them available next week to start distributing as needed. And then also exploring different options to increase and sustain internet access to students in need. We're looking at things, and some of the discussions we have and the caution we have, like some campuses have a pretty good range of Wi-Fi on the campus outside. Some don't. And we have the ability to put some devices or some, I'm going to use the wrong terminology because I'm not Mark Gabehart, but put devices on a campus that would extend the use. But we're also trying not to invite people to collect on playgrounds and on a campus because we're still trying to follow the social distancing measures. So it seems as if as much as our devices are being used, that people have figured out where to go to get coverage. But we'll continue to work on that and then distribute more and publish to sustain internet across the district as needed. Jennifer? And then on the meal distribution, this is another update that you've seen frequently. We're serving about 2,450 students per day. That's about 5,200 meals because we distribute breakfast and we give lunch out, and then they have breakfast included for the next morning. And we're giving it to any child 18 years or younger. We're serving right now from 11 campuses, and we also are delivering meals to some of our FIT students who don't have the ability to come to the campus and pick them up. And so that number ranges, but I know our state and federal department has done an amazing job of tracking these kids down and finding out who needs to be fed and who we can get food to. And then we also give out weekend meals on Friday. So tomorrow when students pick up their lunch, they also get meals included for the weekend. And so some have asked the question before, are we serving all of our economically disadvantaged kids? And the truth is we don't ID kids when they come and pick up their food. So there could be a case where some kids that maybe don't qualify are picking up food. We're hoping that that's not the case. But, if somebody's hungry and they come to get food, we don't ID them at the sites. So we're distributing whoever shows up and needs to be fed. That's who we're feeding. And you go to the next one, Jennifer. And I want to give you a brief update. This is coming real fast, but our commencement walks are next week. We've successfully distributed all of our caps and gowns from our campuses. I want to thank our area superintendents and principals for working on that, and our other administrative teams on our campuses and counselors and teachers and everybody who was involved. We have websites dedicated to each graduating class online. The commencement walks start on Monday. The first one will be Monday morning at 8 o'clock, and that will be Success High School. And then Monday evening at 5 o'clock will be Early College High School, which is these are challenging circumstances, but that's a really big deal because that's the inaugural class, the first group of graduating seniors from ECHS. So those will be live streamed each day. And then after Monday, when we do our two smaller campuses, then starting Tuesday, it'll be each of our comprehensive campuses Tuesday through Saturday. And there is a bit of rain in the forecast, so if part of that gets rained out, we will bump it to the following week, and we'll send that information out as well if something gets canceled because of rain or lightning or storms. The first one that has to be postponed will be the first one to fill the slot. And that following weekend, being Memorial Day, we will pick that back up on Tuesday as we thought about it because families may have plans for that Memorial Day weekend and Monday. And so the first slot we would have a makeup day would be Tuesday. I think it's the 26th. And then just following in order. We hope we don't have to do any of that, but we're ready if we have to. And then we're also, right now, information has gone out to seniors for virtual graduation. And we're hoping for a high participation rate in that where students send pictures, a video, a message. And then the company that's doing this for us, they basically put together a movie for each high school. And the release date of that movie will be June the 5th is the target that we have now. So once they get all that and the campuses help them check for appropriateness, and we give everybody an opportunity to submit information to be included, then that will be released on June the 5th as our target for that. So it's really twofold: the commencement walk, which is more of a real in-person thing, and then the virtual graduations moving forward as well. And then we've already started recording the speeches for those virtual graduations of the principal, and then the student speakers who would speak at graduation are also putting on their cap and gown. I believe they're staging that at the PAC where they've been given time to report, and that's where they're being recorded. So I want to thank Jenny and her department for that work and what they're doing with that. And I also have to give kudos again to our area superintendents and operations department, our safety and security folks, Elaine DuVille. It's all hands on deck on trying to get this commencement walk set up properly so that we properly honor our seniors the best way we can under the circumstances. So the next slide, I think, is going to Mandy, and she's going to talk a little bit about summer learning. If any of you have specific questions, and I know two of you have seniors, Miss Weir and Miss Feller, about commencement walk or graduation, anything like that, just feel free to call me, and I'll be happy to. But we'll be sending out more and more information as we get closer, and we're getting pretty close. So.
Dr. Presley, can you just give like a little bit of a snapshot of kind of what it will look like at the commencement walk? Because I know that I think that would be helpful for people to understand how there's a lot of concerns in terms of safety. And so if you can kind of give a little overview for maybe
Sure.
even those that are concerned that don't have seniors, but just.
Yeah, I can do that. So each senior is allowed to bring 4 guests with them. So when they arrive at the stadium, they'll be parked in a parking lot. Some of our nurses will be working with Ms. DuVille, and they'll go vehicle to vehicle to ask those important medical questions before anybody can get out. Once the folks in the vehicle are cleared to get out and get in line, then they will get out and assume a spot on the sidewalk outside the stadium leading into the admissions gate on the north end of the stadium, opposite the scoreboard. And then we will have it coned off where each graduate and their 4 guests, if they bring 4, will be 15 feet from the next family. And so they'll process through in the stadium. Once they get on the field, they'll stay on the yard lines, which are 15 feet apart, 5 yards. And then they'll move. When one family moves up 15 feet, the next family moves up. The only contact that will be had will be at the admission booth where they enter the stadium. Every graduate will have a card with their name on it, and that's behind the glass window where they hand tickets through the little slot. So there'll be somebody from the campus passing out the cards. Excuse me. Once they go into the stadium, they will hand their card or put it on a table where a caller will be behind a plexiglass window as well with a field mic. So then they'll call out the senior's name. The senior will walk across the stage while their family goes congruent with them on the field, and opportunity for pictures. We'll have professional photography there. And then they go off the stage, down the other sideline, out a different gate, back in their car and leave. And once a set of cars complete that walk and leave, then we'll pull the next set of cars up to the next closest spots, and we'll start, and they'll be checking them. So we're hoping it flows like a machine so that there's not a stop in the action. But once again, we've never done this before, so we're hoping it goes well. But always mindful of social distancing, and we're encouraging families and graduates. It's up to them whether they shouldn't get more than 15 feet, to anybody else. And then they're going to be politely asked to leave as soon as they finish the walk and they exit the stadium, to please get in your car and go home. And I know, some restaurants and stuff are open, or they may have a celebration at home, but go home and celebrate so we can get the next folks in and get them through. So we're hoping it goes well. Once again, it's we haven't done this before. We had a lot of creative folks coming up with this and working on this, so we hope it goes well. We hope all of you can join us. I know it would be difficult to be out there all 6 days for all ceremonies, but you're definitely welcome. We'll have ice water and fans blowing. The dignitaries, including yourselves, well, you are the dignitaries, will be sitting in the end zone, looking at the stage in spaced out chairs. And we'll have ice water and some snacks and stuff. And so you guys when you arrive, you'll need to park on the south side of the stadium by the scoreboard and come in over there. And then I know you have family obligations as well, especially the 2 that have graduates. And so you can come and go as much as you want. But and there'll be a gap in the middle of the day, right? So we have the morning session and the evening session each day.
And Dr. Presley, if I could just chime in really quick too, we actually went out on the field at Kelly Reeves and created a video that literally walks parents through the process. And we have a graphic that I'm really proud of that shows the family and the graduate moving down the line. So we did send that to all the senior families and parents, and we're going to send out another message tomorrow with just some more clarifying information. We'll provide another link to that video, and we'll also include that we are watching the weather forecast because I'm sure families are wondering about that.
Yeah, and we'll be out there most of the weekend setting up. We're having tents set up, in the stage, obviously, and those parts, sound checks. So we're hoping to get it all right, and we'll see Monday morning. But I appreciate your support in this effort and doing something a little different, and we'll see how it goes.
So Danny, I got a quick question. Thanks for the update. So any idea how many families are going to participate, students and their families? I mean, there's going to be 700 graduates or so for each high school.
Yeah, we didn't have them RSVP because some kids are still taking AP tests and they have other conflicts. What we did do is split each high school, the comprehensive high schools, by alpha. So like A through wherever it landed, G or whatever, come in the morning, and then the other ones try to come in the afternoon to space it out. So we shouldn't have the entire class coming at one time, but we know we're going to be flexible with folks, that they have conflicts or family things that they have to do, that if they have to come at a different time other than their prescribed alpha time, we're still going to let them walk.
So once they walk in through the gate and onto the field, going to be 5 yards apart, 15 feet. They just move forward, and you call the whole family, the next one up, the next student, and the whole family moves with them. And so they'll be in there only a short amount of time, I guess, right? There's going to be nobody in the stands to cheer them or anything.
No, nobody's in the stands. It's an empty stadium, which allows us to do this hybrid type ceremony. So the people who will see them go across the stage are their fellow classmates and families that happen to be in the stadium at that time. And then we're doing live video, just like a replay for a soccer match or a football game. So there'll be a live streaming on the Jumbotron. That'll be going as well, with a kind of a toned down pomp and circumstance playing so we can hear the names when they're called. So it's, but they shouldn't, you're right, Mr. Chadwell. That's one point we're trying to make, is they shouldn't be out of their car for very long if they get out and process. And we're able to keep moving the lines up, because it's just a matter of walking down the field, handing your card, having your name called, go across the stage, go down the other sideline, and leave. So we're hoping that there's no, I'll be very clear, the entrance gate and the exit gate are two totally separate gates on that north side of the stadium.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you for going into that detail. And thank you, Jenny, for putting together the video. I think that will be very helpful.
All right. Well, I think that the next slide, unless there's any other questions on my part, I'll pass it to Mandy, and she's going to talk a little bit about our instructional continuity into the summer. So thank you again for being allowed to visit with you guys tonight.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Presley. And Jennifer, if you'll go to the next slide. Good evening, President Weir and trustees. I'm going to give you just a high-level overview of this because I believe we have it as a topic in our May board meeting. But our summer learning program is basically a two-pronged approach. One piece of that rolled out this week is our Instructional Continuity Summer Edition, is what we're calling this. And essentially what we're doing with this program is we are leveraging 8 weeks of curriculum that TEA has put together in all of the core content areas. And we are launching this as an optional opportunity for all students in the district. This is not for credit, not for grades, not for skipping a grade. It's just our opportunity to encourage kids to continue to engage during the summer and to continue that cadence of learning. And it will also give us an opportunity to continue to build our skill set as a staff and our students' skill set for at-home learning as we go into a fall. So a brief little synopsis of the program. It will run from June 1st through July 24th. It is, as I said, 8 weeks. However, if we have students who, in a similar fashion to Netflix, decide that they want to blow through all 8 weeks in a matter of a few days or a couple of weeks, that's certainly an option that they could pursue. But not only are we just utilizing TEA's curriculum, what we're going to do is, and you see this on the screen, is we're going to launch a video each week with our own staff that gives an overview of the concepts to be learned for that week. And then the kids will use the curriculum to learn during the week. We also will have a help desk type of environment in which we have facilitators here in the district who will check in on the kids, support and encourage, offer assistance if needed. And then we'll have weekly knowledge checks that will be provided by the district. We're also working on an incentivization plan to keep kids going with this. And the way it works, kids can either engage in this digitally by accessing the materials online, or when they register, they can indicate to us that they desire to have a paper packet. And we are coordinating with TEA to have those drop shipped directly to students' homes from TEA. The kids will be matched with curriculum that is on their grade level in the paper version. However, if a student is accessing the curriculum digitally, then they could even choose to preview the upcoming year's curriculum or another course. So I think that's a nice option that we'll have to offer to our students. The second prong of our summer learning program, our area superintendents are working on putting the logistics of that together currently, but it will be based on student need, and they will be invited to participate in summer learning that will be facilitated by teachers on the campus, and that will be a virtual option. And we'll provide more details on both of these programs in the May board meeting. So any questions? And
I can't see everybody, so if anybody does have a question, they need to just speak up.
All right, and I'm passing it off to Jenny Caputo for an update on communication, and I believe she's on the line. Thank you.
Yeah, Jennifer, can you put that final slide up, please? Maybe. Well, I can go ahead and start speaking to it. There we go. I was excited to share with you all a couple of weeks ago some of the work that Communications and Community Relations has been doing over the past several weeks. We've, of course, been communicating very vital information, but we've also been providing engaging and encouraging and helpful content. It really shifted our communications plan in a challenging and positive way. But we wanted to kind of let you know what we're thinking moving forward now. As Dr. Malera talked about, we're very interested, obviously, in what our stakeholders have to say, and we need to know their priorities and concerns because that helps us target our communication so that it's timely and useful. We want our family members, when they look at any piece of communication we send out, to say, hey, that's exactly the answer that I was looking for. So we did help promote and push out the Thought Exchange that launched May 6th. And then, as you know, Research and Evaluation has been using that information to develop their ongoing surveys. We're really excited because we know that data that they'll provide will also, it's valuable for everyone, certainly in the district, but it's also going to direct our communication so that we know we're providing the answers people need every time they look at our web pages, read our emails, or look at our social media posts that we're being helpful. One of our most important vehicles over this time has been our newly created Health and Wellbeing newsletter. I just wanted to mention that the last one will be next week, since that's officially the last week of school. It's been hugely successful, tons of readership. Now that we're moving into summer, we're going to use that feedback we'll be getting from those surveys to create a summer series of email updates, likely not every week, maybe every other week, certainly as needed. You'll notice a shift in tone. The health and well-being has been light, encouraging, providing resources, and we'll still obviously provide any resources we need to, but they'll be a little more newsy in nature. We know parents really want to know what to expect in the fall, so we want to be able to keep them updated on that. And then finally, we're moving forward with a plan for face-to-face engagement, though it'll be virtually face-to-face as we're doing it now, most likely. We know we have a contract now that allows us to host large town halls through Zoom. So we're exploring what would be most meaningful and valuable for our stakeholders. I'm envisioning a series of opportunities centered on very specific themes, including board goals and priorities, which I know that's important to you all for your Lone Star governance in terms of two-way communication. So I'll be working with that and happy to hear feedback and input from board members on what those might look like.
Well, I just want to say I appreciate that the two-way communication. That's something that's really important to me, and I look forward to seeing and being involved in that as much as possible, even the ones that aren't just about board goals. I think it's that a lot of times other topics can inform board goals as well. So I appreciate you working on that.
Absolutely, and I'm happy to have the help and input.
So I had one really quick question, and actually it was on slide 4 about the meals. I don't know if Dr. Presley's there or Dr. Flores, if you can answer, because one thing that I've asked a couple times, and I don't think I've gotten an answer yet, is that, we have before spring break, we probably had about 12,000 kids that were on free and reduced lunch, maybe a little bit more, because I think our numbers are like 24%. And I get that we're not IDing kids, and that's great. I mean, I think that's awesome, because there's probably a lot of people who now would qualify for free and reduced lunch that maybe didn't qualify before. But I'm concerned that if we're only giving meals to about 2,400 students, there's a lot of kids. I mean, there's 10,000 kids maybe out there who were on free and reduced lunch that we're not providing meals for. How are we trying to identify them? How are we trying to, make sure that there aren't kids falling through the cracks and missing meals in all this?
Well, we have a high level of engagement. I've given you some numbers on the kids that we've not engaged with, which is very small in comparison to the district. So we know that kids are engaged in learning. My personal belief is that a lot of kids are maybe having to stay somewhere else, out of the district or away from where they typically would be, because they can still engage in their lessons at someone's house in another city or another county. But the fact that we don't ID the kids, I can talk to Yana about that, our director of food services, but there are reasons why we don't ID the kids and find out. But I think we've done a good job of publicizing these meals are available. So
no,
I don't know.
And I'm not suggesting to ID the kids, because I think it's really important to give the food to anybody that comes. And maybe I'm not phrasing my question correctly, but I do worry that there's a lot of kids out there that maybe it's that 11 to 1, and they do have a parent that's working and they can't get there. And I don't know if we're going to continue through the summer, but I guess my hope would be that we would maybe directly reach out to them, especially if they are engaging in their coursework, to make sure that they're not missing meals.
Okay. We can, it sounds like you're talking about a model similar to what we're doing with some of our fit kids right now, where we would deliver meals.
Or just, just try to get that data of, you were on free and reduced meals, you were getting meals from us, we can see you're doing your homework. Is there something that we could do to help you get meals? Are you, making sure that everyone's eating actually?
Okay, I can talk to Yana about that, so I'll be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Feller?
You kind of asked my question, but we didn't get an answer on it. When are we planning on stopping meals, or are we continuing through the summer to have availability of meals?
There's a summer feeding program.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Dr. Presley. I was just going to say there's a summer feeding program, and Dr. Oddix may have the exact dates and all, or Dr. Presley. So with that, Dr. Presley, but there is a continuance.
Okay. No, I don't. The plan right now is to try to continue through the summer. We haven't announced that yet, or at least to sometime through the summer, whether it's the entire summer or not, which we typically don't do, but these aren't typical circumstances either. So, but we are looking at continuing feeding beyond next week when the school year ends.
Yeah, and Dr. Oddix is on, so he might be more specific on that.
I think we're going to have to make some adjustments in some sites as well and we'll publicize that because some of the campuses that are feeding sites now are having some major renovations going on, projects where they won't be able to sustain that with the construction and the different things going on there. So I know Jana's been looking at shifting that in some way so that we continue to serve, but it may be in a little bit different spot.
Right. And bottom line, I have talked to Jana, and our plan is to continue feeding, starting as soon as the regular school year ends, the feeding will continue going starting into the summer.
Great. Thank you.
Quick question. Is that and I think it's great that it's provided. I see a lot of schools all over the country are doing that as well. They're doing similar. Is that a straight pass-through expense to the USDA or the Texas Department of Agriculture? Is it subsidized predominantly by that? And do you just say we serve 2,500, 5,000 meals on a regular for the last few weeks?
Right. And like for the current school year, we are getting reimbursed through the USDA for this. And I'll double check with Jana. I think there will be, I don't know whether we're going to be like in the summer part, whether that subsidy will continue or whether we'll be paying that out of the district's, food service fund balance. But, our intent for now is to this point, it's been subsidized. I'll confirm with her whether that will continue or not. But one way or the other, our plan is to continue the feeding at the start of the summer.
Thank you.
Ms. Fessel?
I just had a quick question on the thought exchange, and I hadn't checked back in a few days to see where we're at with participation. I know it's just been a very robust participation.
It was over 13,000. I think it was closing in on 13,500 individual people, and then almost 15,000 individual thoughts. So you're able to, and if you experience it, so you understand how it works, you're able to put two different thoughts. And then the actual ratings, it was over 200,000 ratings. So it was a very good participation.
Mr. Math?
So on the thought exchange, what are your thoughts, no pun intended, on accumulating and reporting on the results? Because the questions are kind of all over the responses are really all over the place. Are you going to categorize them or print them all out? Just curious how you're going to summarize them.
I'll let Dr. Malerba take that, but I will say that if you've experienced it, you are able to see what the top thoughts are and see the ratings. So as a participant, which is the beauty of this tool, people sort of coalesce around what the top priorities are. But in terms of, there are on the back end, there are deeper analytics. And so I don't know if Dr. Malerba wants to speak a little more to that.
That's the big picture, especially for the top line results, which we'll get to you first. Just what were the top ideas or the top rated ideas for each of the groups? We are also coding as many responses as we can. I want to say we'll get through all of them. I'm hoping we will. And looking for those patterns of kind of hot topics, if you will, not just the highest rated, but what people seem to be concerned about. Is it health and safety? Is it some other aspect of social experience or emotional experience of the school closures? So right off the bat, it'll be top thoughts and then the overlap between thoughts that are shared by certain groups of people and by other groups of people, and where there's overlap. So that's kind of a neat back end thing that Thought Exchange can provide. And then we'll follow up really with more details based on our coding of responses.
Okay, thanks. I look forward to seeing the results.
Are there any further questions? Mr. Moses?
Just real, and really it's more of a request for, I don't know, it's whenever we can get the information, Dr. Flores, but just whether it's talk about in May or June is fine, but when we come back to school, if we do, let's just say start on August 20th, just kind of what that may look like, whether or not there's kind of have questions, is there going to be an at-home option available for parents who may not feel comfortable yet sending their kids to school. Parents who want to send their kids to school and just get them out the carpool line as fast as possible if they can do that. So just going through whenever is appropriate, but hopefully before too deep into the summer, kind of what options we're looking at so parents can be aware and say, thinking about next school year.
No doubt. I mean, that's some information that
I know you're still working on that, but just as it gets more fleshed out.
Right. The sooner the better, obviously. And that's what I said earlier. I think I did mention that August 20th is the start date for the 2021 school year. And there might be some individuals thinking, hey, what about doing that earlier with some summer intercessions and some other things that the commissioner has allotted. And I understand why it's being allotted. But again, what I do know about this community, and I do know that there's still a lot of fear out there with regards to what we would call your normal operation. So in a perfect world, we'd want to start August 20th exactly how we ended on March the 13th, and that is in a collective school by school, right? But that looks like that's going to be almost definitely not much of a possibility with regards to the information, unless some drastic improvement. But back to your question, and yes, we are already, that's something we are working on ardently with regards to how we go about different models where, we can't keep a blended learning model, because digital learning is here to stay like never before. But one of the things, bottom line on this, is that we will design, and we've got the people in this district. That's why I'm so proud of being the superintendent of this district, that can not only do it in a good manner, but do it in a manner that could be possibly a way other districts around the state and nation can do it. So I look forward to that design. But yes, we'll get as much information as possible as soon as possible.
Thank you.
All right. Were there any other questions from trustees? All right. Seeing none. Thank you, Dr. Flores. We will move to item F, board announcements and request for future agenda items. Ms. Feller.
I would like for us to consider the possibility of coming back in person for board meetings again. I know we are 10 people or less for our immediate board. I don't know what the logistics are legally, if we can do that without offering public comments, or do some kind of situation like that. But with the technology issues and things like that, I would like for us to at least explore the possibilities of when we can start meeting together in person.
I had that on mine to say too. So maybe Dr. Flores, we could get with Doug at some point, really relatively soon, and see sort of legally and logistically what we can and cannot do.
Sure. That's definitely something. Superintendent chat yesterday in the local area was exactly that. Are there thoughts about going back? And so this is timely. So Mr. Ponick, you and I and others can get together soon.
Yes, sir.
Great. Thank you.
Hey,
Mr. Chadwell?
Yeah, just had a request. What I asked for last week was a meeting. It can be in person, the way Amber just recommended, but to do the grievances, review the hotline, review the report that was submitted to us a week or so ago, and then at least do some sort of summary on the evaluations that we started right before spring break.
Okay, maybe Dr. Flores, once we figure out sort of how the in-person, we can also work on that for a schedule too.
Yes.
All right, were there any other announcements or new business, future agenda items? All right, I don't see anyone's hand, so it is, if there are no objections, I don't think we need to go into G, closed session. We had no closed session agenda items. So then if there are no objections, it is 6:44 and we are adjourned.
Great work, team. Good job tonight.
Thank you.